Hi, hello, what's up? Welcome to Tax Ladder. Today we'll continue our series of revision lectures. Today we'll look at exemptions under GST. My name is Shivakant and I'm a chartered accountant. Let us move forward quickly. What is an exempt supply first? Exempt supply is given under section 2, clause 47. So what is exempt supply? It is supply of goods or services for which zero rate has been specified as per the rate notifications, or which has been specifically exempt as per section 11 of the CGST law or section 6 of the IGST law. That is the second one, by way of exempt notification. And even non-taxable supplies are also considered as exempt supplies. That is surprising, but yes, petrol which has not yet been brought into the GST net, and alcoholic liquor which is specifically outside the GST net as per the constitution itself, are also to be included as exempt supplies. So this will have an effect when we look at ITC reversals. But for now, exempt supplies are three things. The one specified as nil rate as per the rate notification. Two, the one for which a specific exemption notification has been issued as per the recommendation of GST Council. Third one, non-taxable supplies, petrol and alcoholic liquor, which have not been brought into the GST purview yet. So these three are exempt supplies as per section 2, clause 47. Alright, let us look at section 11, subsection 1. Central government, if it is satisfied that it is in public interest to do so, it may exempt absolutely or subject to conditions. It feels that potatoes should not be subject to tax. Or let us say some chartered accountant service, it feels that should not be subject to tax. So what does it do? It issues a notification either absolutely or subject to conditions. The condition could be you submit a declaration to the assistant commissioner of your jurisdiction for claiming an exemption. That is a conditional exemption. So this condition should be satisfied before you claim the exemption. Otherwise you will not get the exemption. So that is what 11.1 is. If it feels that it is necessary, the central government may by notification either absolutely or subject to condition exempt such good or service from part or whole of tax. Let us say it says, okay, if you submit this declaration, you will be able to get an abatement of 50%. That means you are getting exemption only from half of the tax. So that is also something that could be done. 11 subsection 2, it can by special order only in exceptional circumstances. Special order only in case of exceptional circumstances as per the central government. It can issue a special order only in case of exceptional circumstances. So let us look at section 11 subsection 3. Central government considered necessary for clarifying the scope or applicability, insert an explanation within 1 year from the date of issue of such notification, order or explanation, and it shall have effect as if it has always been a part of the notification or order. What does this mean? It can insert an explanation saying that there might be ambiguity regarding which goods does this exemption notification apply to. So it can give a clarification by way of an explanation. So the explanation would be applicable from which date, not the date of giving the explanation, but it will have retrospective effect from the date of issue of exemption notification, as if the explanation was there right from the inception of the exemption notification, not from the date of giving the explanation. Understood? And also the clarification is also in such a way that it is said to be clarified from the date of issue of the initial exemption notification. The clarification will not be applicable from the date of issue of clarification, but right from the first day on which the exemption notification has been issued. But the clarification or explanation has to be inserted within 1 year from the date of issue of notification or order. The registered person shall not collect tax in excess of the effective rate applicable on such goods or services or both. Let us say an abatement of 60% is given on a rate of 18% tax. So let us say 50% abatement is given. That means 9% tax he has to charge. So the effective rate of tax is 9%. So what this says is, he wants to tell us that you cannot charge more than what the effective rate of tax is. That is anyway something people will do, but he just wants to reiterate. That is why he put this. Understand? Next. Now let us look at the services exempt from GST. This is by way of notification number 12/2017, rate notification dated 28th June 2017. Before the commencement of GST law, the notification has been issued. So the amended notification reads like this. So entry number 1, services by an entity registered under 12AA by way of charitable activities. So listen carefully. So the entity has to be registered under 12AA of the Income Tax Act 1. So it has to be carrying out charitable activities. For that, if it receives consideration, then it is not chargeable to GST. So what are charitable activities? Let us quickly look. So what are charitable activities? Activities relating to public health by way of care or counseling of advancement of religion, spirituality or yoga, advancement of education programs, skill development programs, preservation of environment, watershed, forests and wildlife. So the 4 burning issues in the country are what charitable activities are: health, public health and advancement of education and skill development. Employees are becoming unskilled, so you have to reskill them. So these are what charitable activities are: public health by way of care or counseling of terminally ill persons or persons affected with HIV or AIDS or persons with severe physical and mental disability. So if I am trying to help, I am trying to provide counseling to people who are terminally ill, severely ill. Let us say he's in coma, he's unable to speak, he has to be counseled a lot, he does not remember people. So all of this would be charitable activities. If a person is affected with AIDS and I counsel him so that he makes an effort to live, so that is also charitable activity. Person with severe physical and mental disability, both his hands are gone, severe physical disability. Advancement of religion, spirituality or yoga, self-explanatory. Advancement of education, so for abandoned, orphaned, homeless children, for physically or mentally abused or traumatized persons, people who have a traumatized childhood or who were physically abused during their childhood, if they generally have some mental issues, so if we are trying to impart education to them, that is charitable activity. Prisoners, so this is being done a lot now these days. So if I try to educate people above 65 years in rural areas, even then in urban areas it would not be charitable activity. So even then it will be charitable activity. Preservation of environment, including watershed. So the cities previously used to be flooded with rivers, but now the rivers have gone away. That means the watershed has come down. So we want to improve the watershed, forests and wildlife. So if this is done, it would come under charitable activity. So let us go to the first slide again. Yeah. So to sum it up, services by an entity, it has to be registered under 12AA. It has to be under any of the charitable activity: advancement of education, spirituality or yoga, environment, preservation of environment, and it could be public health, care or counseling of those persons. So this is what it is. Section entry number 13, services by way of conduct of religious ceremony, renting of precincts of a religious place owned or managed by an entity registered under 12AA, 10 subsection 23C clause 5, 1023 BBA of the IT Act 1961. So exemption not available if room charges are 1000 or more per day, renting of premises, community hall, mandaps having charges of 10,000 or more per day, renting of shops or spaces for business where charges are 10,000 or more per month. So what does this mean? So let us say a pujari conducts a marriage or some the namakarana is happening. The person's name is being written on some rice. So that because that is a tradition. So what is a religious ceremony? So any priest conducting any ceremony as per religious texts. There are religious texts based on which for Muslims it is the Quran. Based on that all the ceremonies take place. For Hindus it is something else based on the caste. So maybe this is a caste based provision, but that is how it is. So conduct of a religious ceremony. So the priest conducts a religious ceremony as per religious texts. So that is exempt. He will not charge you GST. Renting of precincts of a religious place. Let us say a mosque has a commercial shop beside it within the precincts. So what is precincts? Within the boundary walls of the complex where the mosque is situated. So one thing we have to notice is renting of precincts of religious place, it has to be owned or managed by the entity registered under 12AA. So the precincts of the religious place has to be owned or managed. Even though it is not owned by it, it should be controlled or completely managed by the by an entity registered under 12AA or 1023C5, 1023BBA of the Income Tax Act. So if that is done, it is exempt. Provided that, so if the mosque has a room where it can accommodate guests, if the room charge per day is 1000 or more, then the exemption is not available. That means it has to be less than 1000. So if you go to any of these, even the small temples, if you want a guest room, so the charge will be less than 1000 in order to avoid GST. So renting of premises of community hall, mandaps. So if you hire a Kalyana Mandapam which is within the precincts of a religious place, within the precincts of temple, mostly the Venkateswara temples are built like this. It also has a Kalyana Mandapam beside. So if you hire that Kalyana Mandapam, and if the rent for that one day is less than 10,000, it is exempt. If it is 10,000 or more, it is chargeable tax. Even renting of commercial shops, there are also a lot of commercial shops beside many mosques, which the mosque, the trust which runs the mosque owns. It collects rents. If the rent is less than 10,000, it is exempt. If it is 10,000 or more per month, so the first two are per day. Because it is shop, rent is collected monthly. You look at what is actually done, because renting of Kalyana Mandapam is done per day and renting of room is also done per day. But whereas renting of commercial shops, the rent is collected monthly. Based on that, the notification is obviously framed. So that is how you have to remember. Finally, conduct of religious ceremony is exempt. Renting of precincts of a religious place meant for general public, it has to be owned or managed by an entity registered under 12AA or 1023C or 1023BBA. Room charges 1000, less than 1000, or even in case of Kalyana Mandapam, less than 10,000. In case of renting of commercial shops, it should be less than 10,000 per month. All right. Now, entry number 60. Service by a specified organization in respect of religious pilgrimage facilitated by the Government of India. So the Hajj committee is there. So every year people go to this Mecca. So for that, there's a huge long process. You have to make an application at least a year before. You have to make an application to the local Hajj committee. So it will forward it to the higher Hajj committee. So then your pilgrimage is approved and then everything is taken care of. So service provided by the Hajj committee to the prospective pilgrims for money, it charges money for all the travel, food, accommodation at Mecca. Everything is provided by the Hajj committee. So in that case, service provided by Hajj committee is exempt. Service provided by specified organization. A few specified organizations are the Hajj committee and Kumaon Vikas Mandal, which provides pilgrimage to a temple. So this should be facilitated by the Government of India, mind you, because the Hajj committee, the pilgrimage to Mecca and the Kumaon Vikas Mandal is actually facilitated by government. It is exempt. Training or coaching in recreational activities, arts or culture, sports by charitable entities registered under 12AA. So what does this mean? What are recreational activities? So if what are forms of art, man? It could be painting, it could be any form of art, drawing, painting, making a movie, culture, Bharatanatyam. So any Bharatanatyam training is being given, the exemption will be given to you only if a trust registered under 12AA is carrying out that training or coaching. Or cricket coaching, for example, sports by charitable, cricket coach, Daniel Cricket Academy is there. So it will get exemption under this entry only if it is registered under 12AA. Training or coaching in art or culture, sports, the charitable entity has to be registered under 12AA. Will it get a 12AA registration for cricket coaching? I don't think so, because it is not charitable, as because income tax is completely different. But that is how it is now. Entry number 24: service by of loading, unloading, packing, storage, or warehousing of rice. So this is simple, man. Anyway, rice is not agricultural produce, so it is not covered under the specific exemption notification. So that is why there was a need to give an exemption to rice specifically. Only the grains, the paddy grains, are agricultural produce. Paddy grains are processed and then rice is formed. So there was no exemption for that rice. So that is why a separate entry has been put. Service by of loading, unloading, packing, storage, or warehousing of rice. All right, is exempt. Service by of warehousing of minor forest produce. So other kinds of non-regular forest produce. What is regular forest produce? Regular forest produce is rice, wheat, the things that is staple food for us. For other kinds of minor forest produce also, there was a need to give a specific exemption notification. So that is why this has been given. Service by way of fumigation in a warehouse of agricultural produce. Fumigation is spraying a kind of liquid or gas so that the agricultural produce is free from pests. So that service provided by any service provider is exempt. Carrying out intermediate production process as job work in relation to cultivation of plants and rearing of all forms of animals other than horses for food, fuel, fiber, raw material, or other similar products or agricultural produce. So carrying out intermediate production process as job work in relation to cultivation of plants and rearing of all forms of animals is exempt. So what could this be, man? What could be a case of this? So let us take the example of silkworm. So the worms are caught and some kind of thing is done so that silk is generated. That process is any treatment carried out on that silkworm so that it generates fiber, or it is raw material for further processing of the cloth. So this is clearly coming under this 55. Now what is 55A? Similarly for agricultural produce also we have to see. Service by way of artificial insemination of livestock. So unnaturally livestock is being made to give birth. That means a chicken, in order to give birth quickly, some kind of artificial insemination is done so that things happen quickly. So that is also exempt. That service is provided by someone, that is also exempt. Now this is the main exemption. Service relating to cultivation of plants, rearing of all forms of animals except rearing of horses for food, fiber, fuel, raw material, or other similar products or agricultural produce by way of entry 54. So now service relating to cultivation of plants and rearing of all forms of animal. So whatever the service is, if it is in relation to cultivation of plants and rearing of all forms of animals other than horses, because our horses, we are not treating them as agricultural produce. But fish, yes. What about chicken? Yes. The chicks, yes. Mutton, yes. Lamb, yes. But horses, it is not being treated as being covered under the exemption. For food, fiber, fuel, raw material, or so I'm carrying out this cultivation or rearing for any of this. For food, I get chicken from all the baby chicks, fiber from silkworm, fuel. I generally plant trees. Some kind of trees are only planted for the purpose of cutting them and making fuel out of them. So that is one thing. Raw material. So I get raw material for carrying out further process or similar products or agricultural produce. So agricultural operations directly in relation to production of agricultural produce, including cultivation, harvesting, threshing, plant protection or testing. So what is agricultural produce? Agricultural produce is nothing but any produce arising out of cultivation but does not include the produce which happens after carrying out a process which alters its essential characteristics. So what does this mean? Let us take the example of, the normal example quoted in our book is potatoes. Potatoes generally, if they are taken as it is from the ground, so that is agricultural produce. They are cultivated. When they are ready for taking out, we take it out. So but when the potato is cut and made into chips, so that is something being done after it is agricultural produce. Agricultural produce is the raw potato. After, maybe I'm just cleaning it to make it ready for the primary market. The primary market is the person who initially purchases the potato. Who would it be? It could be the initial intermediary. He purchases the raw potato with the peel. So for that person, for it to be marketable in the primary market, if I maybe clean it a little, so that process is agriculture operation. So the further processing of potato, like cutting it, frying it off, is not agriculture operation, because it is not agricultural produce. Once it is cut or peeled off, it is no longer an agricultural produce. So long as the processes that are carried out still make it available for the primary market, it is an agricultural produce. Understand, agricultural operations directly in relation to production of agricultural produce, including cultivation. Initially we cultivate the plants, sow seeds. Harvesting is taking out the plants after they are ready. Threshing is, you have, let us say, maize seeds. It has to be separated from plant. What you do is you hit it on the ground. That is what threshing is. Plant protection. Plant protection, maybe we spread a little chemicals on that. Testing, we test it. So all of these are agricultural operations which are exempt. Supply of farm labor. So the farm labor, if I take the help of some outsourcing person to give me farm labor, the agricultural university takes the help of some manpower services to get farm labor. So that is exempt. Process carried out at an agricultural farm, including tending. Tending is nothing but attending to the crops. Pruning. Pruning is cutting out the weeds. The weeds are removed, it is called pruning. Cutting. So normally cut. Harvesting is taking it out, drying, removing moisture, cleaning, fumigating, spraying pesticides, curing. Curing is also nothing but drying, a sort of drying, sorting, finding out the correct ones, grading it, ranking it quality wise, cooling, bulk packaging, such as and like operations which do not alter the essential characteristics. So all the processes which do not alter the essential characteristics but make it marketable for the primary market are exempt. Renting or leasing of agro machinery. Let us say in my farm I have agricultural machinery. So I rent it out to someone else. I have a tractor, let us say, or a water sprayer is there. So I rent it out to someone else. So that is also covered under this exemption notification. Loading, unloading, packing, storage, warehousing of agricultural produce. Remember, for anything to get an exemption, it has to be agricultural produce. See, if rice is being stored, normally it will not get exemption because rice is not agricultural produce. Paddy is agricultural produce. Rice is, again, the peel is removed off from rice by putting it in a rice mill. So that process cannot be said to be an agricultural process because it is making it marketable for the retail market, not primary market. All right. Agricultural extension services. Some kind of research is done on the best ways to help the farmer grow crops. So if the farmer or the owner of the agricultural crops takes the service of some experts, that is also exempt. Service by way of agricultural produce marketing committee. It is a marketing committee which helps the farmers to market the crops. So if the committee provides service to the farmers, that is also exempt. Or board or services provided by commission agent. So the farmers cannot sell the crops themselves, so they hire an agent. The agent sells the crops on his behalf. Nowadays, the intermediaries are coming down. But anyway, services by a fumigation in a warehouse of agricultural produce is exempt. So some more quick points. Tea leaves are agricultural produce and tea is not agriculture produce, obvious, because for making tea leaves into tea, a lot of processes are involved. The process is making it marketable for the retail market and not the primary market. Jaggery is not agriculture produce. What is jaggery? Sugarcane is processed and jaggery is formed. So sugarcane, raw sugarcane, if it is cultivated and harvested, it is agriculture produce, but jaggery produced out of sugarcane cannot be agriculture produce. So if I'm transporting jaggery, it is not exempt because jaggery is not agriculture produce. Dehusked or split pulses are not agriculture produced. So dehusked, what does it mean? So rice, it generally comes along with the plant. So it is hit on the ground so that it separates. So dehusked or split pulses, because the process is carried out on them, it does not make it, or if it goes through a rice mill, it is no longer agriculture produce because it is making it marketable for the retail market. Milling of paddy is not an intermediate production process in relation to cultivation of plants. It is done after cultivation and harvesting. Milling is also changing the essential character and hence it is not eligible for exemption. So carrying out an intermediate production process as job work in relation to agriculture produce is exempt, but here milling of paddy is not an intermediate production process in relation to cultivation of plants. So it has to be before it was agriculture produce. If some process is carried on which still renders it agriculture produce only, then it will get an exemption. So converting paddy into rice is making it marketable for the final market. So this process is not keeping it as it is as an agriculture produce. So we cannot give it the exemption. Now coming to educational institution. Now services by an educational institution to its faculty, staff and students by an educational institution by way of conduct of entrance examination for consideration in the form of entrance fee. So service by an educational institution. Educational institution provides service to its faculty, staff and students, teaching. But first let us understand what is an educational institution. Educational institution is an institution providing service by way of preschool education and education as part of secondary, higher school or equivalent. That means it is a normal school up to intermediate. It is called preschool and higher secondary school. Now education is part of a curriculum for obtaining a qualification recognized by any law for the time being in force. So our CA course is part of a curriculum recognized by any law because it is recognized by the Chartered Accountants Act. Alright, and not of foreign country. Let us assume the course has been changed to CPA. CPA is not recognized by the Chartered Accountants Act yet, I think. So it is not as part of a, if I do a CPA course, I cannot get exemption from GST because it is not recognized by an Indian law. Maybe it is recognized by the US law, but it does not matter to us. We only consider the Indian law. So education is part of an approved vocational educational course. So these small people, they get themselves skilled by joining these vocational educational courses like carpentry, like ironsmith, like goldsmiths. So all of these skills are learned by these people by joining these vocational educational courses. Courses by the Industrial Training Institute or Industrial Training Council affiliated to the National Council for Vocational Training and State Council for Vocational Training, offering courses in designated trades notified under the Apprentices Act. So what is a vocational education? So if educational institution is providing vocational educational course, then it is also an educational institution. But for what is a vocational educational course? Two things. So it has to be a course by the Industrial Training Institute or Industrial Training Council. One, it has to be approved by the National Council for Vocational Training or State Council for Vocational Training. Two, the third thing is it has to be designated trades. The course is for designated trades. Some designated trades are notified as per the Apprentices Act, like carpentry and all. So it has to be notified. 3 conditions to be satisfied here. The course has to be run by the IT Industrial Training Institute. The Hyderabad, there are lots of ITIs. It has to be recognized by the National Council for or State Council for Vocational Training. The third one, it has to be part of designated trade. If these 3 are satisfied, then it is a vocational educational course, and the institution providing this is an educational institution. The next one is modular employable skill course approved by the National Council for Vocational Training, run by a person registered with the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Even I, if I am an expert in this skill, I can apply to the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and get myself registered on the website. So a person who is intending to learn the skill can come to me, or the government redirects a person who is nearby me to me. A modular employable skill course is also nothing but a skill which is learned for people who are dropouts from school. So these people are given skills like an electrician who can do things himself, so that they can employ themselves and earn a living. So it has to be approved by, so if I want to give a course, it has to be approved by the National Council for Vocational Training, and I have to register myself with the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. So alright, 3 things for it to be an educational institution. 1, preschool education, school and intermediate. 2, either it has to be a part of a curriculum recognized by any Indian law for the time being in force. ICI, even a BCom degree is recognized by law for obtaining a certificate as per law. Now let us go back to that. Where were we? Current slide. So services by an educational institution. It has to be an educational institution first to its faculty. So maybe the educational institution provides transportation of faculty from the college to their homes. That is also service to staff and students. Educational service provided by the institution to students is also exempt. So it has to be, the main thing to be satisfied is it has to be an educational institution. And services by an educational institution by conduct of entrance examination for consideration. See, these all these intermediate colleges or even degree colleges, they conduct an entrance exam. You might have heard Geetham Engineering College has its own entrance exam. So for that it charges some fee on the people who enroll in it. So that is exempt because Geetham is an educational institution. It is providing education as part of a curriculum for obtaining a course recognized by law. So the admission, any exam conducted by it for consideration would also be exempt. So services to an education, we talked of services by an educational institution. Now services to an educational institution are also exempt. What are those? Transportation of students. Let us say the school does not have its own bus, it hires some transporter. So that is also exempt. Catering, including midday meal schemes sponsored by central government, state government or union territory. Security, cleaning, housekeeping performed in such educational institution. So these services provided to educational institution are exempt only if it is providing preschool education and education up to higher secondary school. So if the person is providing transport of students of engineering college, then it is not given exemption. If manpower or housekeeping services are provided to the school, to the college, to the engineering college, it will be subject to tax. Understood? Even CA students, let us say a private coaching center is running. So a person is providing catering to the students. The ICA also provides catering to the students in GMCS. So that is also subject to tax if it charges directly on the student. It is an educational institution, of course. It is an educational institution, but this exemption is available only if the education is being provided is preschool education and education up to higher secondary school. Only till intermediate, these services would be given exemption. But services relating to admission or conduct of examination by such institution. So all educational institutions. So conducting examination if the college does not conduct an examination, if it outsources the conduct of examination to someone else, that service provided to the college by the third party is exempt. Supply of online educational journals or periodicals. Now, interesting thing is, this is exempt. The exemption will apply only to institutions providing services by way of education as part of a curriculum for obtaining a qualification recognized by any law for the time being in force. So what does this mean? So this exemption, let us say CA students, easy example. So the CA students are being provided education as part of a curriculum. So ICAI is an educational institution in this respect. It gives the students online journals, doesn't it? The student journal comes online. So the supply of student journal is exempt. So if it is not ICAI, if it is, let us say a school provides the school students online journals for some consideration. So this is not exempt. And what is the third kind of institution? Modular employable skill course. So if this vocational educational course provided by ITI gives online journal to the persons who are attending the course, that is also subject to tax. Understood? So the only exemption for online journals is available to in respect of education as part of a curriculum for obtaining a degree recognized by law. Understood? So that is it. So to sum it up, it is an educational institution. Is it falling under any of the three categories? Is it an intermediate college, or is it providing a degree as part of a curriculum for obtaining any qualification as recognized by law? Is it a vocational skill course? If any of these three are satisfied, it is an educational institution. Next, look at if it is providing to a faculty, staff or students, then it is exempt. So in case of conduct of entrance exam, it is exempt. So effect from 31st March, the introduction of IIM Act, it has empowered IIMs to grant degrees, specify criteria for admission, specify the academic content for programs. Resultantly, all IIMs are now educational institutions. Previously, IIMs were not educational institutions because there was no specific law which recognized the certificate courses provided by IIMs. So now the IIM Act 2018 has been introduced. Previously there was an IIM Act, but amendments have been made and a new act has been brought out, which is called the IIM Act 2018. So it can grant degrees. So long duration courses for 1 or more years which resulted in a diploma are also exempt. Now short duration courses, now service provided by IIMs which lead to a certificate are also exempt because IIM is now an educational institution providing services to students. So it is covered under the exemption notification. Previously there were specific notifications exempting IIM courses, but now those are deleted because now it is falling under the category of educational institution. Short courses which lead to participation certificate are subject to GST because it is not qualification recognized by law. Qualification only comes when a diploma or degree certificate is given. Because it is only a participation certificate, it does not lead to any degree recognized by law. So canteen services provided by educational institution to student, faculty, staff are exempt, but not vice versa. So what does this mean? Canteen services provided by educational institution to student, faculty, staff are exempt, it seems. So why is it exempt? You could say that this is a composite supply, but one can argue that if you look at the composite supply definition, a supply of two or more taxable supplies, he says, because service of education being the principal supply, if you think like this, is exempt, it cannot be treated as composite supply because both of the supplies involved have to be taxable ones. Because education service is exempt, you cannot consider this as composite supply. But the study material says that canteen services provided by educational institution to student, faculty, staff are exempt. But what is vice versa? Hire a separate caterer for the students. So he carries on he bills the students. The college gets a little bit of commission. So this is a completely independent transaction. So this will not be given an exemption. Exempt only to the extent provided to a preschool, higher secondary school. Service by a veterinary clinic in relation to healthcare of animals, birds. So healthcare services by clinical establishment. So clinical establishment, hospital, nursing home, clinic by whatever name called, authorized medical practitioner, a person who is registered with any of the medical councils of India under any recognized system of medicine. So these are allopathy, yoga, naturopathy, homeopathy, siddha, Unani, or any other system of medicine. So that practitioner has to be registered with any of the medical councils with any recognized system of medicine. Paramedics are these staff which can provide a lot of useful services like the nurses and all. These are called paramedics. So the services provided by hospitals, authorized medical practitioners, paramedics are exempt. Services by transportation of patient in an ambulance is also exempt. So healthcare services are services by diagnosis, treatment, care. So the flow of the process is, when you get fever, you have to be diagnosed first, and then treatment comes. After that, care. So that is how it is: diagnosis, treatment, care of illness, deformity, abnormality, or pregnancy in any recognized system of medicine. So if it is an unrecognized system of medicine not falling under any of this, it is subject to tax. Include transportation of patients to and from a clinical establishment. Excludes hair transplant, cosmetic surgery except when undertaken to restore the anatomy of functions. So hair transplant and plastic surgery other than undertaken to restore any abnormalities. Let us say I have an accident and my bone has been broken and the skin also has been deformed. So I have to do some plastic surgery mandatorily to restore it. So this is to restore a deformity, but not for beautification purpose. Understand? So if it is for beautification purpose, it is subject to tax. Services by cord blood bank by way of preservation of stem cells or any other service in relation to such preservation. So what does this mean? When a baby is born, it has on its stomach a cord attached to the mother. So the cord is cut, and that cord tube which is there, that is actually very valuable. It has cord blood. In that cord, that blood is very useful because it has some stem cells which can be used for preparation of very useful medicines. So services provided by cord blood bank by way of preservation of stem cells. So the blood in the cord is preserved by these institutions. That service of preservation of cord blood by preservation of stem cells or any other service in relation to such preservation. So whatever process is used in preservation of stem cells is exempt. Now any other system of medicine, renting of rooms to inpatients in hospitals is exempt. So why? Because you could say it is a composite supply, but if you read the definition clearly, you have to argue that it cannot be a composite supply. But looking at the institute's answer, you have to follow the institutes only and say that it is exempt because it is a composite supply of healthcare service. Renting of rooms is ancillary. The principal supply is healthcare service to inpatients. So food supply to inpatients as advised by doctors, nutritionists is part of composite supply of healthcare. So this is also not logical, but you have to follow the institute's guidance, whatever the institute says. The institute says is it is a composite supply. You have to follow that it is a composite supply. And the food supply to inpatients is exempt because it is a composite supply of principal supply, which is healthcare service. Because the principal supply is exempt, this is also food supply is also exempt and not separately. Alright, food supply to attenders of inpatients is subject to tax. You cannot say that it is composite supply. Now services by government authority. Alright, now let us look at service by government authority by way of activity in relation to functions entrusted to a municipality under 243W or function entrusted to a panchayat under 243G. What is a government authority? Services provided by a governmental authority What is a governmental authority? Governmental authority is an authority, board or any other body. So it has to be an authority, board or any other body. So first condition. Second is it has to be set up by an act of parliament or any state legislature, or established by the government in which not less than 90% of participation by way of equity or control to carry out any function entrusted to municipality or panchayat under 243G. So let us take the ICAI for example. Governmental authority, is it an authority, board or any other body? It is any other body. It is set up under the act of parliament. Is it set up under the act of parliament? Either of these two conditions have to be satisfied. Is it set up under the act of parliament? Yes, it is. If you look at the ICAI logo, established under an act of parliament will be there. It is set up under an act of parliament. Alright, the second condition is also being satisfied. It is, if this is not satisfied, you look at this. Established by any government in which not less than 90% of participation by way of equity control. So let us say that a company is there established under an act of parliament. So at least 90% of the equity share capital has to be owned by the government, central government or state government. And one more thing is it has to carry out functions entrusted to a municipality or panchayat under 243G. So is the ICAI carrying out functions of a municipality or panchayat? No. So it does not. That makes ICAI not a governmental authority. So what is 243W activities? Activities in rural areas. So 243W, you just reverse W and you get municipality. So that is the easy way to remember. So 243W covers activities to be carried in rural areas, like what is essential in rural areas, like urban planning, roads, laying of roads, public health, provision of urban amenities. 243G is what is essential in a village, panchayat. Agriculture, agricultural extension service, animal husbandry, dairy and poultry, fisheries, small scale industries, rural electrification. So all of these are essential in villages. So that is what the activities of panchayat are. Simple. 243W, what are the activities essential in a city? Town planning, urban planning, bridges. So ultimately, governmental authority, three conditions. There has to be an authority, board or any other body. Yes. So it has to be either set up under act of parliament or established by a government in which not less than 90% of participation by equity is of the government. And it has to carry out, third condition is functions of a municipality 243W or panchayat 243G. So if those are satisfied, then it is a governmental authority. Let us go to the earlier slide. Where were we? Execution over. Yes, services by a governmental authority by way of activity in relation to functions entrusted to a municipality under 243W or function entrusted to a panchayat under 243G. So if these services are provided by governmental authority, then it is exempt. Services by central government, state government, local authority to any other central government, state government, local authority, apart from ABC of NTC, we'll look at ABC later. So services provided by central government, state government to any other central government. The government of Telangana provides service to the government of Maharashtra, that is exempt. Services by a government entity to the central government, state government, union territory, specified a government entity to, so what is a government entity? It is an entity set up by the government. It could be a public sector unit. It could be NMDC, government entity, but it has to carry out functions entrusted to the government. So is mining a power entrusted to the government as per the constitution? That is something you have to look at. So service by government entity to, so if let us assume NMDC is a government entity. If a government NMDC provides service to the central government, it provides mineral consultancy to the government of Orissa, because it feels that some mines are there underneath, it is not sure, so it takes the help of NMDC. So in this case it is exempt. So the service is being provided by NMDC to the government of Orissa. Against consider, let us say in return the government of Orissa gives grants to NMDC. So in this case this is exempt. Services provided by old age home. Let us look at services provided by central government, state government, local authority, excluding the following services are exempt. Services provided by central government, state government, local authority, whatever the services are, it is exempt, except if it falls under this. Services by Department of Post, by way of express parcel post, speed post, agency services, life insurance provided to a person other than central government, state government are taxable. So that means if speed post is covered by the Department of Post, it is also a government. So, but the services of speed post, express parcel post, and agency services, like sometimes I can go to a post office and pay my electricity bill. So in that case, what it is doing is it is carrying out service for commission. That is something which is not the basic service of the Department of Post. That is why it is taxable. So the basic mail services are still exempt. What are basic mail services? Normal postcards, and transfer of money orders. So if I want to send money by post from here to my mother in some other state, I can use a money order, or maintaining of basic post office savings accounts. So that is also basic mail service. Here life insurance service is something that a post office generally does not do. So it charges some commission for it. So that is also subject to tax. Provided to a person other than central government, state government, union territory. So if these services are also provided to the government, then it is exempt. So ultimately services by central Department of Post other than basic mail services are subject to tax, even though Department of Post is coming under the central government. And also service in relation to a vessel, aircraft inside or outside the precincts of a port or airport. What does this mean? The central government has the Airports Authority of India. One of the wings under the Ministry of Civil Aviation is the Airports Authority of India. That provides a lot of service within the precincts of an airport or port. So the service is provided like monitoring of aeroplanes. For that it charges a certain amount of thing from the GMR run airport. It charges from GMR. So that would be exempt. So understand. Now transport of goods or passengers. So railways, buses, so these cannot be exempt because it is a huge source of revenue, even though it is provided by the government or government undertaking. So that is also taxable. Any service other than the services provided to the business entity. So any service provided to the central government by the central government is exempt. Central government, state government, local authority is exempt, except these three. But okay, if you provide the service to a business entity, it is taxable. But anyway, it is payable under reverse charge by the business entity. Any service other than service provided to business entity with aggregate turnover up to such amount. So if the business entity has a turnover in the previous year in such a manner that it need not register itself this year, it is not at all registered and it does not require itself to register, because the last year's turnover is not exceeding the threshold limit under section 22, so that I don't need to register myself. In that case, services provided by the government to that business entity which is not required to register itself is exempt. If it is crossing the threshold limit so that it has to register itself and has not registered, or it is actually registered, then it is subject to tax. And who is required to pay tax? The business entity under reverse charge. Here we say that except ABC, because anyway ABC are, whether I provide to a business entity or not, it is taxable. So there is no need to put ABC again. This is ABC. And renting of immovable property. So renting of immovable property provided to a business entity even though the turnover limit of the business entity is less than the threshold limit, it is subject to tax and it is not exempt. But however, even renting of immovable property provided by the government has been brought under reverse charge. Service by central government, state government, local authority where consideration charged does not. So now the rest of the people will say, okay, basically service provided by central government is completely exempt except the following. So all right, you exempted, fine, but the business entities will come and say, sir, my business entity is not required to register, so give me exemption. So I gave you exemption. But people, the business entities which are required to register itself, also come to the government and say, sir, okay, I'm a business entity whose turnover is crossing 20 lakhs or 1.5 crores, whatever the case may be. But even for small amounts, I need to pay tax. That is unfair. So what the government does is, services provided by government, central government, state government, where the consideration does not exceed 5,000, I will exempt. The government gives this lenience. So if the consideration for services provided by government to a business entity, what is left is business entity, where threshold limit crosses the 1.5 crores or 20 lakhs, whatever it is. And if the consideration is not exceeding 5,000, then it is again exempt. Understood? Services by an old age home run by central government, state government or entity registered under 12AA to its residents against consideration up to 25,000. Now services of an old age home provided by central government, the state government or any other entity, it has to have a 12AA registration if it is any other entity, provided the consideration charged does not exceed 25,000 per month per member. Alright, if it exceeds 25,000 per month per member, then it is subject to GST. Provided the consideration is including boarding, lodging and maintenance. It is including of everything. He says boarding, lodging and maintenance. It does not say food. So let us assume it is excluding food. So services by central government, state government, union territory to their undertakings or PSU by way of guaranteeing loans by such undertakings or PSUs from banking companies. And so let us say the Coal India Limited wants to execute a big project. So what it does is it needs 500 crores. It does not have that amount of working capital. So it goes to an NBFC and asks for a working capital loan. But the NBFC says, I want guarantee. It cannot guarantee 500 crores. So what it does is it asks the government, okay, you guarantee me give guarantee for this loan and take some charges so that he'll give us loan. The government guarantees, and this service of providing guarantee to any of its undertakings is exempt. Now services provided by central government, state government by way of registration under any law. So normally you register a company, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs registers it charges some amount. That ROC fees is not subject to tax. Testing, calibration, if you open a petrol bunk, what they do is they come for testing, they check whether all the measurements are being done correctly or not, the meters are correct or not, no fraud is happening. The safety check is also happening so that the consumer's safety is checked. Certification relating to a certificate is given so that saying that you are complying with all the fire safety standards required to run a petrol bunk, and also because it is very risky running a petrol bunk. So all of these services provided by the state government or the department, concerned department, would be exempt. Now services by central government, state government, union territory, local authority by way of issuance of passport, visa, driving license, birth certificate, death certificate. So from birth to death, whatever public processes you take, the service charges collected are exempt. Tolerating non-performance of contract for which consideration is in the form of fines or liquidated damages. So non-performance of contract. Let us say the government, so this is only services provided by the government. The government enters into a contract with a construction contractor. It says that if you do not construct it within so and so time, or you do not construct so many square meters, you will be subject to fine or damages. So if the contractor does not adhere to that construction of that amount of square meters, he has to pay some fine. So that fine that he pays to the central government or state government is not subject to GST because it is exempt. Assignment of right to use natural resources to individual farmer for cultivation of plants. So certain pieces of land are actually assigned to farmers for a certain period of time, depending on the area, for a certain nominal amount. So that assignment or right to use land given to the farmer is exempt. So customs authorities, what deputing officers, what does this mean? Customs officers, they are asked to inspect the containers at odd times because sometimes it is very urgent. Even in case of these corona days, the food supplies are urgent. So if a container comes, it has to be inspected then and there, even if it is 2 o'clock at night. So the customs officers are given extra pay or incentive, which is called merchant overtime charges. It is collected from the person who is actually importing the goods. So the officers are given merchant overtime charges. So that amount that is collected from the importer by the government is also exempt. It is collected and paid to the officers. Services by rehabilitation professionals recognized under Rehabilitation Council of India at medical establishment, educational institutions, rehabilitation centers established by central government, state government, union territory under 12AA. So this is very essential these days. The government has mandated that a psychologist or psychiatrist be present at schools having a certain number of students. So these professionals who are registered or who are recognized under the and members of the Rehabilitation Council of India, the services provided to the government are exempt. Contracts of construction, erection, installation, commissioning, fitting out, repair, maintenance or alteration of civil structure or any other original works pertaining to housing for all mission. Look, pure labor contracts which does not involve supply of goods in relation to original works of construction, erection. So new constructions and renovation or alteration or additions to already abandoned construction so that they become workable are original works. Only original works, if they are being constructed, erected, installed, so the pure labor contracts that are being done is exempt. And pure labor contracts pertaining to housing for all mission under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is also exempt. Services by electricity distribution utility by way of construction, erection, commissioning, installation or of infrastructure for extending electricity distribution network up to the tube well of the farmer. So the Telangana State Electricity Department, what it does is in order to ensure that the electricity reaches the farmers and the remotest of places, it constructs a certain kind of infrastructure so that the pipelines are laid in the correct manner and it reaches the remotest place. So that infrastructure laid down, the construction service done is exempt. Services by electricity distribution utility by construction, erection, commissioning, installation of infrastructure for extending electricity distribution network to the tube well of the farmer or agriculturist for agricultural use. So this has to be mainly for agricultural use and not for household use, the infrastructure that has been constructed. Service by pure labor contracts pertaining to construction, erection, commissioning of original works pertaining to a single residential unit otherwise than part of a commercial complex. So pure labor contracts, let us say I enter into a contract with a person who supplies labor. What the labor does is it just lifts the bricks from one place to another. This is pure labor. this contract does not involve me purchasing goods. So this pure labor contracts for construction of a single residential unit. Single residential unit is construction of a residential house for the use of one single family. Alright, one single family. Otherwise than part of a commercial complex. Commercial complex is a building consisting of more than one single residential unit. So if it is a complex consisting of multiple single residential units, then this exemption is not available. So if it is only one single residential unit which is not in a commercial complex, only then the exemption is available. Understood? Now transfer of TDR, FSI or long-term lease of land where constructed flats are sold before issuance of completion certificate. So transfer of development rights. Now as I told you before in the previous lesson, so if the landowner gives land to the developer for construction of 5 flats, so 2 flats the developer takes, 3 flats the landowner takes. In this case, he is transferring the right to use the land. This is called transfer of development rights. So this service of TDR or FSI would be exempt only when the constructed flats are sold before the issuance of completion certificate. That means GST would be leviable only when the construction, a part of the consideration is paid before issuance of completion certificate, right? Only then GST will come. So GST will come at the end point or when the final payments are being made. So if I say that on transfer of TDR also GST would be leviable, it would be subject to double tax. Understand? That is why if the constructed flats are sold before issuance of completion certificate, I am exempting here. So that anyway the value of TDR is also included in the construction price, right? So on the final amount or installments that are being paid, GST is anyway coming. So that is why I don't want to make it a double tax. So the exemption is given. No exemption is available where the flats are sold after the issuance of completion certificate. So if the flats are sold after issuance of completion certificate, then the TDR rate applicable would be 1% or 5%. Understood? 1% for affordable residential house and 5% for non-affordable ones. Transport of passengers. Okay. Transport of passengers by air starting from or terminating in an airport in the states of Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram. So what this is so these are special states which need to develop. So the government provides incentive by saying that if you go to any of these states like Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Mizoram, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Bagdogra in West Bengal. So if you go to any of these places, if you start from any of these states or end at any of these states, you will not be subject to GST. So it is encouraging people to go to these places. Non-air conditioned contract carriage other than radio taxi for transport of passengers other than tourism, conducted tour, charter or hire. So what is a contract carriage? Contract carriage is as per a contract, as the name suggests, entered into between the person owning the transport and the passenger, intended to carry passenger. So the contract could be on a time basis. I will hire your vehicle for 5 hours. You take me wherever I want you to go. So it could be on time basis or it could be from one point to another. You take me from Hyderabad to Delhi. So this could be one kind of agreement. So this is a contract carriage. It could be without picking up or dropping passengers other than those. So all the people, so let us say a person has to be picked up in Mumbai. So that is also one thing that should be part of the contract. I cannot randomly pick up people on the way like a public bus. So that would not be a contract carriage. All right. So if you look at a private bus, let us say a Volvo AC I hire. So everything is a contract. I book tickets before. I know the people who are coming with me. So he does not stop in between, and people will not be picked up randomly. So this is not a contract carriage. So that the Volvo bus will be a contract carriage. A normal RTC bus where you routinely commute is not a contract carriage. Or it includes a maxi cab and a motor cab. Even an Innova if I hire, so that is also a contract carriage. Even a small four wheeler in Indica I hire, it is also a contract carriage. So non-air conditioned contract carriage other than radio taxi is something like Meru cabs, which is solely used for airport transportation with two-way communication. So previously, what used to be there was a control room and there was the cab wala. So the two-way communication used to happen through mobile phone. So if two-way communication was there, along with GPS, it is a radio taxi. So non-air conditioned contract carriage other than radio taxi for transport of passengers other than tourism, conducted tour, charter or hire. So if it is an air conditioned contract carriage, let us say a bus is being taken on rent for transport of passengers from here to Delhi. So Volvo bus is going. So here, if it is non-air conditioned, it is exempt. But if it is for tourism, conducted tour or charter or hire, then it is taxable. Stage carriage. The Delhi transport bus, it stops at every gully. It adds more passengers. Some passengers get down. So this is a stage carriage. At each stage, some people get down and certain people board the bus. So other than air conditioned bus. So in this case, the local bus is also exempt provided it is non-air conditioned. Understand? If it is an AC local bus, it is subject to tax. Stage carriage is a local bus. Understand? Non-air conditioned contract carriage is, it could be a motor vehicle, it could be a bus, but there is a clear contract. It could be on a time basis or it could be from one place to another. So that is how you understand. If it is non-air conditioned, it is not taxable. However, if it is for hire, it is for any conducted tour, charter or hire or tourism, it is taxable. Service provided to the central government by way of transportation of passengers by air starting or terminating at a regional connectivity scheme airport for consideration in the form of viability gap funding. So the regional connectivity scheme has been introduced a few years back, wherein it says that because it is in non-cities which are about to develop into big cities. Alright, there are some places like that. So in order to give a boost to them, they set up airports at that place so that the connectivity is enhanced and they have even more chance of turning into big cities. So in this, because initially there will not be many passengers boarding. So what the government will do is, the government will give certain amount. The tickets will be at a concessional rate and the government bears the rest of the cost. So that amount that the government is paying the airlines is exempt. Service provided by central government by way of transportation of passengers starting or terminating at RCS airport for consideration in the form of viability gap funding up to 3 years from the commencement of operations. Understand? This is exempt. Now, transportation of passengers by railways. Now, railways normally is taxable if you are in a AC coach or a first class coach. If you are in general compartment, no GST will be leviable. Transportation of passengers by metro is exempt. If you see the metro, there will be no GST. Monorail is a normal train with a single track. Generally, 2 ways will be there, where 4 wheels can run on 2 tracks. But for a monorail, a single track will be there. A tramway. Tramway is nothing but a kind of a train which runs on normal roads. It is mostly in Kolkata, the trams are there. Inland waterways, the local waterways from, let us say, here to Port Blair I travel, it is also in India. So the local waterway travel is also exempt. Public transport other than predominantly for tourism purpose in a vessel between places in India. Let us say there is constant public transport between here to Port Blair, let us say, in a coastal state to Port Blair. But I'd go for tourism purpose. So in that boat, one guy is going for tour purpose, the rest of them are taking a normal commute. Here the predominant transport is not for tourism. So the entire fare would be treated as non-tourism purpose. So if the entire people boarding the boat are going for a tour, then it would be subject to GST. Otherwise, it is exempt. Public transport other than predominantly for tourism in a vessel between places located in India. Metered cabs, auto rickshaws. Metered cabs, one which has a meter reading. Auto rickshaws are exempt. Transport of goods. Now, coming to transport of goods normally is exempt because small people carry it out. But services of a GTA is an organized person, so we tax him. The person liable to pay tax is the recipient. It is covered under reverse charge. Courier agency. So courier agency services are also subject to GST. So other than that, anyone is providing transport of goods. A single lorry driver is transporting goods from one place to another. It is his own lorry. So he is not a GTA. He does not issue a consignment note. So for it to be a GTA, he has to issue a consignment note. The consignment note should clearly have a lot of details like what is the vehicle number, what is the nature of goods being transported, what is the destination, what is the location of consignor, consignee. All of those details need to be mentioned. If no consignment note is being issued, then it is not a GTA. So that is the clinching point. By inland waterways. So transportation of goods by road is exempt other than GTA or courier agency. Transport of goods by waterways is also exempt. Inland waterways, local. Service by transportation. Now the other mode is left is rail. Transportation of goods by rail vessel of the following goods are exempt. Other than these, if they are transported, they are taxable. Relief materials, defense and military equipment, railway equipment, newspapers and magazines, agri-produce, milk, salt, food grain, including flours, pulses and rice, organic manure. So all of these are exempt if they are transported. Now GTA services. Service by GTA by way of transport of goods in a goods carriage. The same thing. Relief materials, defense, military, newspapers, magazine. Now this railway equipment is not there. So you could get confused. If he gives in the question, railway material being transported by GTA, you should not say that it is exempt because it is not listed here. Railway material is exempt only if it is carried by rail, not by this other things, by a GTA. So the only addition is if the GTA is carrying goods where the value per consignment, per consignee does not exceed 750, then it is exempt. So for that single consignee it is exempt. If the entire value is exceeding 1500, for the rest of the people whose single consignee value does not is exceeding 750, it is taxable. Alright, so the thing you have to see is what is the value of the entire consignment. If it is 1500 or less, then look at individual consignee wise value. If it is less than 750 or equal to 750, then the entire consignments are exempt. The rest are same: milk, salt, food grains, including flour, spices, pulses, rice, organic manure. Now services by GTA to unregistered person is exempt, excluding unregistered casual tax. Now services provided by GTA to any unregistered individual is exempt. So to other persons, to a body corporate, whether registered or not, to a cooperative society, to a factory registered under Factories Act, to any cooperative society, a society, association of persons, it is subject to tax under reverse charge. But if the GTA service is provided to an unregistered individual, then it is exempt. Remember, so to any other person, if GTA service is provided, it is subject to tax. Now, services in relation to transport of goods by road. So what is GTA? It has to be transported by road and a consignment note has to be issued. Services by GTA. Now GTA services to the department or establishment of central government, state government, union territory, local authority, government agencies, which is undertaken registration only for TDS purpose. So ultimately, GTA service is taxable. Courier service is taxable. GTA service is exempt. When is it exempt? If it is transporting these kinds of materials, and if the consignment value, look at the consignment value. If the total consignment value is less than 1500, then it is exempt. Look at this single consignment value also. If it is less than 750, then that single consign, for that single consignee, it is exempt. For the rest, where the value is more than 750, it is taxable. Now, normally GTA service is taxable, but GTA service to an unregistered individual is exempt. And one more thing, GTA service provided to central government, state government, local authority, government agencies where the registration has been taken only for the purpose of deducting TDS, then GTA service is also exempt. Now, this is very simple, extending loans and advances, where consideration is represented by interest or discount. If you deposit something in a bank, interest that you receive is not subject to GST. Right, other than interest on, so credit card interest is specifically excluded, so it is subject to GST. Sale or purchase of foreign currency amongst banks. Now, sale or purchase of foreign currency amongst banks or authorized dealers are exempt from GST. But inter-se sale or purchase of foreign currency with a customer is subject to GST. Alright, it is only if the transaction of inter-se exchange of foreign currency is happening between banks themselves or authorized dealers and banks, then the exemption is applicable. Now look at these things. Interest on delayed payment of brokerage amount or settlement obligations are covered by this entry. So interest on delayed payment of brokerage. So in case of any securities transaction where brokerage has been paid late, so that is also covered by the exemption notification. Interest on delayed payment is also nothing but in the nature of interest on deposits. Late payment charges for outstanding dues of credit cards is subject to GST, because interest on credit card itself is outside the purview of this exemption notification. So late payment charges on credit card is subject to GST. Collateralized borrowing and lending obligations, repo and reverse repo. If the bank borrows from the Reserve Bank of India, certain percentage rate is fixed, it is called repo rate. And if the bank gives something to the Reserve Bank of India, it is called reverse repo rate. So that is also in the nature of interest. So that is also covered by exemption notification. Collateral borrowing, lending, commercial paper. So if the bank wants working capital, it issues commercial papers to the common man or businesses. I can subscribe and I pay the money. It gives me certain interest. This is also in the nature of interest or discount for deposits or loans, so it is exempt. Interest on finance lease is subject to GST. So finance lease is not extending loans. Finance lease, the ownership is also not being transferred to the person to whom I am giving the machinery to. So this is in a way renting of machinery. So that is why the exemption notification is not applicable. So interest on finance lease is subject to GST. serviced by banking company to basic savings bank deposit account holders under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. So banking company providing service is exempt. So credit card, let us say I have a Citibank credit card. So I swipe it with, I buy something. Let us say I buy a ticket on Book My Show. So Book My Show will ask the credit card of Citibank to give the money. Here Citibank is the acquiring bank. So service by acquiring bank to any person. So Citibank is providing service to me. It is settling an amount of 2000 rupees of 500 rupees for the ticket booking. It is paying to Book My Show. So for this service that Citibank is providing, the service charges that it levies, it is not subject to GST. If the single transaction value is less than 2000 rupees or equal to 2000 rupees. Understand, this ticket, one ticket that I book should not be subject to GST by the Citibank debit card that I use. Alright.